Hi. Okay, so I know that the whole point of this thing is that the videos are supposed to be unedited and you're supposed to get to see exactly what happens behind the scenes of this podcast, but I'm just going to be transparent with you. This one did not go well. So you're going to see that there is definitely some editing. You're going to see some cuts. I had, let's see, flushing toilets, kids singing, kids walking in, the dog coming in. I had the SD card was full, so I had to stop halfway and erase stuff off the SD card and transfer things to the computer. Then after that, the mic went bad, so I had to restart the entire computer. Then I had someone else come downstairs and walk in and talk to me. You can hear now the dryer's going off, so I made it through. I walked away. I have some tea here right now. So now I'm going to start editing. Deep breath. But the honest truth is, I don't even know at this point what I recorded and what I didn't record. There was so much starting and stopping. I was trying very hard to not get frustrated. So the video you're about to watch has editing. I'm just going to be transparent with you. I will try in the future not to do that, but it did become absolute chaos. So there was some necessary cuts, but I still hope you enjoy it. Happy Valentine's Day.
Close? Really?
Vampire! We take your candy!
Count Dracula.
I am Dracula. And I bid you welcome, Mr. Hunt, to my house. Come in.
Our first award goes to the vampires for most blood drained in a single evening.
The strength of the vampire is that people will not believe in him.
Good evening, my YouTube family. It is Valentine's Day, as you can tell. I have this nice Valentine's Day set up for us to enjoy Valentine's Day together. So I will be doing my Valentine's Day episode here in a few minutes. For those of you who have not listened to last year's, you can go listen. That is podcast only. That is not on YouTube. But that is top 10 vampire couples. So go check that out. I have spent a few minutes messing with lighting, making sure the battery is charged, making sure everything is perfect. So I think we are ready to go ahead and get the podcast started. Fingers crossed. Last week was a bit of a mess, so we'll see how this goes. Good evening, my fellow vampire lovers. Let's see. Oh, thank goodness. No mic problems. It's off to a good start. Good evening, my fellow vampire lovers. The sun is going down, and you know what that means. It's time for me to record another episode of my podcast, The Beautiful Dead. As always, I am your host, Lena Nazari. The quickest way to reach out to me is to go to lenanazari.com. You'll find links to all my social media, or you can just email me. That's lena@lenanazari.com. I haven't said this in a while, so for anyone who's listening that's new, if you have reached out to me on social media via the email or the contact form on my website and gotten a response, that is me. I do respond to everybody. It takes some time. If you have commented on my social media on any of my videos and I haven't responded, I apologize. I am trying to get to everybody, but I do respond. Speaking of social media, I haven't talked about this in a little while, but Anybody who's been following me for a while knows that one of my favorite phrases is, it takes a village, and boy does it. So I have a lot of things happening right now. One of them that is the most valuable to me is the street team. The street team are people who believe in me, believe in my books, believe in my social media, my YouTube, my podcast, and they're out there telling people all about me. So they are helping me out immensely because, as you can imagine, I have a lot going on. In exchange, they get swag from me. So you'll get a package from me when you join. You get postcards from me when I go to different places. And I did currently just name somebody as the head of my street team. So he's helping me just figure out what we can do to really get the word out there and also keep the members supported and keep communication open, because I can't always be talking to everybody. So this will help immensely. So join my street team. Go to the website, join the street team, and come be a part of the fun. I'd like to plan a meetup for my street team sometime in the future, but there will be more coming. If you haven't, subscribe to the podcast, to the YouTube channel. If you have, thank you, because that helps people find me. It also notifies you when things drop, because sometimes I drop episodes that are surprises to people. I do bonus episodes that no one sees coming, so that way you'll get notified. But if you really want to make me happy, go to my TikTok and follow me on TikTok, because I'm getting close to 1,000 followers, and once I have 1,000 followers, baby, I get to go live. And so I'm going to celebrate 1,000 followers by going live. So get the word out. If you haven't followed me on TikTok, go do that. You'll see all my random vampire facts. You'll see vampires in the news, vampiric references where you maybe don't expect them, and then just some fun videos from me when I'm feeling extra creative. So that is me on TikTok, the Beautiful Dead podcast. Now, I'm sure you are wondering why in the first episode of February I didn't draw my tarot card, and that is because I wanted to wait for the Valentine's Day episode specifically. So we are going to do this together. I am going to choose my tarot for February. I will tell you, it has been, that's me shuffling, it has started out very well. I've been getting to the gym. I've been working with a nutrition coach to clean up my nutrition. I've been very focused on getting the YouTube started and running and getting a feel for that. So been very focused and very determined. So let's see what is in store for me in February, or what guidance I will get from the tarot cards. So if you're watching me on YouTube, you get to see me actually draw this, so you know I'm not faking it. The Knight of Pentacles. So the Knight of Pentacles, ooh. So it actually represents somebody who's a workaholic. So isn't it funny that I was just talking about how determined I've been? And for those of you who don't know, I have a full-time job, and then I've also been picking up at the hospital, plus doing all this social media stuff, plus writing, plus at the YouTube and the podcast. So maybe this card is telling me back off a little bit. Make sure that it's not work, work, work all the time, which is interesting. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of hoping for something more romantic, but the Knight of Pentacles, maybe it's telling me like, whew, you need to slow down and take some time for yourself and not be a workaholic. I'm going to have to think on this one. And what this card was trying to tell me. But that is my card for February, the Knight of Pentacles. Oof, interesting. You guys, tell me in the comments what you think the Knight of Pentacles. Maybe I'm not interpreting it right, and you have another idea of what it's representing or what the universe is trying to tell me. Please put it in the comments, email me, whatever. All right. You guys are not here to listen to me ramble on and on. You're here because it is Valentine's Day, and love is in the air. And love is in the air for everybody, not just humans, but supernaturals and immortals as well. When you hear this, we have a toilet flushing upstairs. you know what, I have to go back and listen and see when that started. Love is in the air. And yeah, I hear it there. So let's go back and let's just start with trying to tell me. Please put it in the comments, email me, whatever. Yeah, okay. There it is again. Okay. Hopefully they're done. I even told them, hey guys, I'm recording, so can we keep it down? I think they're done. So I think we can go ahead. Yes, I think we're done. Okay. Oh, the joy of behind the scenes. So when you're listening to this, Valentine's Day is only 2 days away when this episode drops, and love is in the air, not just for humans, but for supernaturals and immortals. We're all out there looking for our soulmates. While many soups know what they are getting themselves into, humans might want to think twice before falling head over heels for a creature of the night. I'm going to have to stop this because now she's up there singing in the bathroom and she's connected to my office by a vent. Okay, so I'm going to have to edit out my daughter singing upstairs because she will be very upset if she knows that I recorded that and posted it. So I just called her to let her know to please stop for now. I don't care that she's singing, but just not right now. Okay, here we go. When this episode drops, it'll be 2 days away from Valentine's Day, and love is in the air, not just for humans, but for supernatural creatures and immortals. Everybody is out there looking for their soulmates. And while many supernatural creatures know what they are getting themselves into when they get into a relationship with a supernatural, humans might want to think twice before falling head over heels for a creature of the night. Relationships are hard enough between two mortals, so imagine what's added to the dynamics when one of you can't die and the other one is, let's say, fragile. So my Valentine's Day gift to you is a kind of lesson on what it means to love a vampire. Now, I will admit, I don't assume all vampire-human relationships will fall into one of these 5 categories. It is the majority of the inevitable outcomes when you fall in love with the living impaired, let's say. The fantasy will fall away and eventually reality will sink in. So let's break down the 5 possible outcomes when you love a vampire. This is human vampire relationships. It is not vampire witch, vampire werewolf, vampire vampire. It is when the relationships start out as vampire and human. 1, they turn you and then you resent it or regret it. Examples of this: Interview with the Vampire, Louis Lestat and Claudia. We all know this story. In a moment of weakness, Louis welcomes Lestat's embrace and turns only to regret it, loathe his own existence, refuse to feed off humans, and then resent his maker. Then Claudia is made in an attempt to bring Louis back around and fix a very broken relationship. After decades of fun vampire frivolity, Claudia recognizes that her brain and spirit may be maturing, but her body will always stay a child. The resentment and animosity start, and it does not end well. If you know, you know. So, let's move on from that one. Another one, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Mina and Dracula. She falls, he falls, then remembers she's engaged, so she writes a Dear Dracula letter to him and disappears, leaving him utterly heartbroken. But it won't last long, because once she's married, she's drawn back into his arms and against his chest. She drinks his blood and begins the turn, only to cry and immediately regret it when she's caught by her husband and vampire hunters. She acts like she didn't even want it, even though we literally saw her beg for it. But we're not here to judge relationships, right? We're just here to analyze them. So, moving on. Possibility. Who is knocking at the door now? Next, we have Caleb and May from Near Dark. She turns him only hours after they meet. Then before you know it, this cute young cowboy is in an RV with a bunch of vampires that obviously hate him. May doesn't really help the matter. She doesn't really tell him what's happening until it's too late. After running from the cops and wiping out a full bar of people, Caleb is saved by a transfusion that turns him back into human, and then May does the same thing, saying goodbye to the vampire existence. They lucked out, because most vampires cannot turn back. They don't have this option. We really only see that with Elena and Damon and May and Caleb, where these two get to turn human and go back. But let's hope that Caleb and May lived happily ever after for the few remaining years that they have as a human. Option number 2, when you love a vampire, they watch you grow old and die. Let's look at Jessica and Hoyt in True Blood. First, they lived together, and it seemed like everything was going to be okay, but a year later, the difference between them was just too much. Jess is feeding off of Hoyt regularly, but she's craving something different. She wants to let loose and live in her vampire nature. They break up. She sleeps with Jason twice. Hoyt is destroyed, so Jess has to glamour him so he'll forget everything. She erases his memories and sends him away. But inevitably, they find their way back to each other. They get married, and they are determined to make their human-vampire marriage work. We don't know if Jess will eventually turn Hoyt. We never see that. But for now, they fall under the very standard, they watch you grow old and die, ending to this relationship. A not so standard one, but still falls under this category. John and Miriam from The Hunger. So she is centuries old and she stays young forever, but unfortunately her progeny does not. Now, whomever she falls in love with and turns lives young and beautiful for a couple of centuries. But 200 years later, they begin to rapidly age. And I mean rapidly, like decades in hours. So, sadly, they don't die. So Miriam takes them up, carries them upstairs, puts them in a coffin amongst all the other coffins, holding the people that she has turned, loved, watched die, and they are just like a shriveled corpse inside these coffins. Sorry, I need to drink water. I have incense burning behind me. Not a good idea. I don't think I'll do that again when I'm recording because it's getting in my mouth. Let's go back. A not so standard one, The Hunger, John and Miriam. She is centuries years old. Now, a not so standard one, John and Miriam from The Hunger. So she is centuries old. Whomever she falls in love with and turns stays young and beautiful just like Miriam, except the progeny only stay young and beautiful for 200 years, unlike Miriam, who stays young and beautiful forever. So after she's had fun with them for 200 years and loved them deeply for 200 years, they start to grow old rapidly. I mean, rapidly, like decades in an hour. So she watches them wither away and grow old. They can no longer feed. They almost become like living mummies. She carries them upstairs, puts them in a coffin amongst many other coffins that I can only assume have all of her ex-lovers. And these ex-lovers just exist in these coffins forever. It's like a collection of people that she's loved over the centuries. We don't know what we would do in that scenario, but I think after you love and lose like the 10th person, maybe stop turning your lovers. I don't know. I think it's better to love a human for 80 years than to love someone for 200 years and then they exist in coffins upstairs forever. That's awful. But again, we're not here to judge relationships, okay? This is merely a lesson for the humans who want to love a vampire. Possibility number 3. They die, and then you must live without them. So this is the flip side. I want to point out that I am doing these in order of how likely, no, not likely. I'm going to cut this all out. Option number 3, when you love a vampire, they die and you have to live without them. It's especially awful if they die to protect you. Here are some examples. 30 Days of Night, Eben and Stella. They were divorced, but they were still in love. When vampires take over their Alaskan town, Eben chooses to turn himself into a vampire so that he will be strong enough to fight the vampires and save his town. And once it's all over and Stella is safe, he chooses to greet the sun and end his very short vampire existence. And now Stella will have to live for several decades without the man that she loves, knowing that he died protecting her. Another one, Riley and Aaron from Midnight Mass. They grew up together on this tiny island and they were high school sweethearts, but they both chose to leave the island and go their separate ways. However, later, years later, they both return with baggage and trauma and they find each other again. Not long after this, they fall back in love. But Riley, unfortunately, is turned against his will. To protect Erin and show her undeniable proof of what is happening, he takes her out on a canoe and greets the sun, turning into ash right in front of her. She is gutted watching Riley turn into ash. She then becomes this amazing badass, helps everyone that she can. Sadly, Erin too would not survive this. She would actually end up destroying the master vampire's wings and ensuring that he goes down with the rest of them. Probably one of the most heart-wrenching and beautiful vampire human love stories I have ever seen. Heart-wrenching. So I choose to believe that they meet each other on the other side or in another life because, Okay, even worse than this one. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Buffy and Spike. He would take verbal and physical abuse from her, then become her booty call, get used to, like, I'm going to edit this part out. Let's go back. Okay. Okay, Probably the most painful one that I'm going to talk about in this category, Buffy and Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. They started out as enemies, and then he started to develop feelings. He puts up with physical and verbal abuse from this woman. Then he becomes her booty call and gets used to this whole thing without her really caring for him, which he knows. He goes through hell to get his soul back in a desperate attempt to win her. Finally, she falls for him in this vampire slayer forbidden relationship. We all dreamed that they would live happily ever after. We didn't know how that would happen, but we all dreamed they would live happily ever after. But there was no way that this coupling was going to end happy. We have to admit that. Not only does he die, but he dies protecting her and everybody else. When the credits rolled on that last episode of Buffy Forever, we were all left empty and to this day mourning Spike and what could have been if Spike and Buffy could have lived happily ever after. Just in case you still want to love a vampire, let's keep going. Number 4, the flip side of this, they lose control and they hurt or kill you or are the reason that you are hurt or killed. Tale of a Vampire, Alex and Annie, Alex and Virginia. Alex has had 2 loves in his eternal life, and both relationships did not end well. Poor Anne was murdered and tied up in Alex's bed like a gift, but she was actually the lucky one because Virginia was freshly turned when her angry ex-husband locked her in a coffin and threw her into the sea, where she's still lying to this day, being tortured because she loved a vampire. Another example of this one, True Blood, Sookie and Bill, Sookie and Eric. Oh boy, where do we even start with this one? Sookie, Sookie, Sookie. How many times did Sookie get herself into trouble? She loved Bill and was in danger because of him countless times. Thank goddess the vampire blood was available to heal her every single time because girl got hurt a lot. Then she falls for Eric, and then again is the victim / bait because they're trying to get to the vampires. For someone who can read minds, she got herself into a lot of bad situations and made a lot of bad choices. How many times did people have to rescue her? Not just the vampires, but everybody. Now, to her defense, being in a vampire's world when you are a human is dangerous. So it is not all her fault. And we know that she wasn't completely human. She was actually part supernatural and still was in a great amount of danger just by being in a vampire's world. So I don't think I need to hit this one too hard. If you know the show, you know the show. Not the best idea for Sookie to be involved with a vampire. This one is tough. Hemlock Grove, Roman and Letha. Ooh, if you don't know, this one's rough. Roman and Letha are cousins. They adore each other. They are best friends. They talk about everything. Roman even rents an entire amusement park for Letha one night. It's sweet, right? But they're in this category for a reason. So obviously it's not going to end well. Poor Letha was taken advantage of in her sleep / in a mesmerized state. Roman was the one taking advantage of her, but he didn't even know he was doing it because he was under the mesmerization of another vampire, his own mother. So he doesn't remember it. Letha thinks it was an angel. She becomes pregnant, thinks it's an angel's baby. Once the baby is born, then Letha is murdered by her own aunt, who claims the baby. And the whole reason this whole thing happened was because poor Letha was just born into the wrong family, loved Roman, got in the middle of vampires, and became the vessel for the line to continue, because Roman's mom just wanted the line to continue. You know what? I want to go back and retake that one because I don't like how I did that one. But they're in this category, so obviously it didn't go well. So, brace yourselves. Letha is taken advantage of when she is sleeping / in a mesmerized state. Roman is the one that is taking advantage of her, but he doesn't even know he did it because he's mesmerized by another vampire, his own mother. And once Letha gives birth, she's no longer necessary, so she is murdered. So poor Letha was just born into the wrong family, was caught in the vampire mess, was loved by a vampire, and therefore taken advantage of and hurt. And this whole thing was done by her own aunt, who used her as a vessel, then murdered her, took the baby, and didn't think twice about it, made her own son the attacker, and it all came to him at the very end. It was absolutely gut-wrenching to watch. So just think twice before you get involved in a vampire's world. I'm just saying. Okay, now, the one we all dream of, the unicorn. The possibility that you love a vampire, they turn you, and you watch the world itself change shape in each other's arms. It's rare, but it does happen. So, Eric and Pam in True Blood, the ultimate vampire power couple. They meet, she's running a brothel, he's 1,000 years old. There's sex in the beginning, but then Eric and Pam become something so much more than that. Their coffins are side by side, they travel together, they run businesses together, they kill together. They would move heaven and earth to protect each other. And I believe when everything else falls, when the smoke settles, Pam and Eric will still be standing side by side, unharmed. Only lovers left alive, Eve and Adam. This is not necessarily my goal for a vampire relationship. It's a little dry for my taste, but Adam and Eve obviously love each other and were meant for each other. They separate when they need to. They go into different countries. They have time away from each other, but they are always connected. They always feel each other, and they always come back to each other when they need to. The only time you see either one of them even look upset with the other one is when Eve realizes that Adam is contemplating bringing his existence to an end. That's the only time you see one of them get upset with the other. And even when things start to turn for the worst, they are together. They are in it together. They are essentially starving to death. They have no clean blood around them, and they are ready to just wither and die in each other's arms. Lovely. Twilight. Edward and Bella. We all know how I feel about Twilight, but I have to give it to Edward and Bella. When I ranked the best vampire couples on last year's Valentine's Day episode, I even surprised myself at how high these two were in my rankings. But let's face it, as cheesy as they may be, they are ride or die. Edward has felt nothing for any girl since he was turned in 1918, but then Bella has something that he just can't ignore. And even when he leaves to protect her, he's still attached, watching over her, protecting her. And she's putting herself in harm's way just for a glimpse of him. Whatever it is, they are reunited when Bella tries to save him from walking into the sun and exposing himself, which would be a death sentence with the Volturi. Once together, the plan to be together forever is set in motion. They will marry, and then she will be turned. Bella loses her virginity to Edward on their wedding night in a scene that will not be soon forgotten, and then finds herself pregnant. Side warning. Human-vampire sexual relations, very dangerous because they are very strong and you are very fragile, and there's a chance that they're going to lose control. So that's a little warning from me to you. Once pregnant, Bella is more than willing to die to save her baby, and she does. She wastes away as the baby is feeding off of her body. She withers away, but manages to give birth, dies in the process, but Edward is able to turn her and bring her back. And at this point in time, Edward and Bella fight for their love, for their family, for their very existence. Never once do they think twice about it. They are forever. Nothing will change that, and no one will ever come between Edward and Bella. So shout out where shout out is due. That is a good relationship. So we just had to take a break because my card was full. So, okay. So we are back. All right. Okay. What we do in the shadows. Laszlo and Nadia. Anyone who listened to my vampire episode, oh no, now what's going on with the mic? My little sound waves are really small. Okay. What we do... Oh my God. And now the mic is echoey. So I'm gonna have to stop this. Okay. So I had to restart the entire computer to get the mic to reset. And as you can hear, while that was happening, I went upstairs to use the restroom, and now the dog has followed me down, so she is at my feet. I only have a few more minutes to record, so hopefully we can get this recorded because I still have to sit down and edit everything. It's a glamorous life, really. Is it everything you thought it was? All right, let's get this done. Now, if you listened to my episode last Valentine's Day and it is recording in the wrong track, there are two tracks. There's the music track and the spoken track, and it started to record in the music track. So this will now be the fourth time I've tried to record this particular part. Okay, let's get a sip of water. Let's reset. It's okay. It's okay. It's Valentine's Day. Everything is okay. All right. Now, if you listened to last year's Valentine's Day episode, you will know how I feel about this couple. Laszlo and Nadia from What We Do in the Shadows. I ranked them as the #1 vampire couple, and in my heart they still are. So Nadia and Laszlo are my kind of vampire couple. This is the love that I look for. She climbs into his window, turns him. Centuries later, they're still together. They love each other. They've been 100% open and honest with each other. They have an open relationship, yet still lust for each other. They laugh, they fight, they love, they sing. They are the vampire Romeo and Juliet? No, because they die at the end. And Laszlo and Nadia will never die. I don't know. They're amazing. I love their relationship. It is completely non-judgmental. They are with each other till the end of time. I absolutely believe that at the end of time, Laszlo and Nadia will be together, still loving each other. Could you imagine a dinner party with just some of these couples, just the last 4 couples. And how do I get invited to that party? So there it is, my lovelies, your Valentine's Day gift. The 5 most common ways that a relationship with a vampire is going to end. Now, for those of you who made it to the end, there's a little Valentine's Day gift for you. In 2 days, on Valentine's Day, a bonus episode will drop. I am going to review a vampire movie that I stumbled across, that I felt, strike while the iron is hot. Now is the time to record this, and I'll tell you why. Because it involves everybody's favorite daddy, Pedro Pascal. That's right, Pedro Pascal was in a vampire movie. I know, and I found it and I watched it, and I'm dropping it on Valentine's Day because everybody, male, female, dead, undead, would love for Pedro to fall in love with them. So he's gonna be your Valentine's this Valentine. So, my lovelies, I have explained for you the possible outcomes when you love a vampire. But be warned, it is hard for vampires to fall in love, but once they do, the vampires I know mate for an eternity. They love passionately and fiercely. They would die for you and they would kill for you. So be careful what you wish for. And with that, I wish you a happy Valentine's Day, wicked hugs, and bloody kisses. Good evening.